wait, I lost you. You there?
There? Was that too hard of a question? You hung up on us?
There are certain questions I will not answer. No. I think you guys know me well enough that I'll pretty much answer anything. Okay, wait, roll that by again because you froze. It was a freeze frame.
Wisdom that you would either give to your younger self, looking back and reflecting on it, because you came to that wisdom later about how everything begins within, and I don't know if that's changed how you approach things or now, right?
Yeah, it's totally changed. I mean, that is, you know how I started my little inspirational t-shirt jewelry company from that 11 days. The first shirt was Begin Within. That's the shirt that I sold out of. That's the one Dr. Wayne Dyer wore on stage, and he loved that shirt. But it's key because it has to start there. And I don't, you know, what I love now, because I have young adult children, they're all sharing this book with their friends. That's the one big takeaway they're running with. And I mean, I literally have not been really wearing makeup for 55 days because I'm overwhelmed by the takeaways. And if that one is huge, because I think it's a life changer. I think if we can accept any obstacle or challenge that comes our way, and we actually go within to find out what that external obstacle is all about and how we react to it, we're good. You know, I mean, I think we get a choice with the whole idea when I say it in there about serving you right. We get a choice. Every time something comes into our life, we can either allow it to serve us right and learn the lessons from it and begin within and pull all this out, or we can let it serve us wrong and we can stay in the grit for a very long time and we can not forgive and we can do all these things, but all those things hurt us. And so, yeah, Begin Within it had to be the first t-shirt. It had to be the first bracelet and necklace because I just... I don't really see any other way. I mean, it's easy to blame other people and circumstance, but that gives me no role in it, and I can't change that then, you know, so I'd rather have something to do with the shift and the change. So, yeah, that's a good question.
What was the hardest for you to write about? So I struggled with when you were telling your story that brought up into motion or was the most difficult on the page? And Judy, you remember this is Lisa that you met at the retreat.
I was like, why is she so familiar? I don't want to say, don't I know you?
Well.
You know, probably all the parts that you guys may have felt tears for, I was a puddle on the floor. I mean, you put me on that bus with Clint, and even though it had been years and I had apologized and I thought I was over it, I was peeling myself off the floor in those scenes. I thought I was done with Paul. But when I put myself back in the emotional memory of being 8, 10, 14, 15, our first kiss, that trip to Milwaukee, it was excruciating. His death, I did it all over again. In order to write about it, I had to go back to that girl that wasn't as evolved as this one, you know, and it was so painful. And as a matter of fact, I'm in the house where I wrote the book. I'm in the seat where I started the first words. But I wrote that part up in an office upstairs, and I shut the door. I waited for Bill to leave the house. And he didn't know what I was writing. It was part 2. He thought he'd never read a word of it. He didn't know where I was. I didn't share anything. And I got through part 2 to the very end, and I had my door shut, and when I came out, there was a big bouquet of flowers on the floor. And he would leave hard-boiled eggs, waters. things so that I kept drinking and eating because I was like a lunatic writing this, which is a whole nother chapter. But he had a big bouquet of flowers, and I was like, what? So I went downstairs to his office. He was home at that point, and I said, what's with the flowers? And he goes, I don't know, I just was feeling it. And I was like, oh my God. And he goes, why? What were you writing? And I said, never mind. Never mind. It's just nice, it's nice that we're this connected. And he didn't even know. It was amazing. But, yeah, so there's a lot of parts. And saying goodbye to Bayard was awful. But huh?
When did he pass? When did he pass?
2000, I think it was 2006 or 8. His son called me.
Really?
Yeah, his son called me, and when did I say that? I'm trying to think of the house I was in, and I knew right away. He said, this is, and he said, we really would love it if you could come to the funeral, but we had, this was the decade after the 11 days, and we really were not rolling in it, and I was having some issues with the kid, and I'm like, I can't come, I can't do it, and I don't want to do it, it's too painful, and I don't want to, he wouldn't want me there anyway, I can guarantee you that. And he goes, I've been going through all your emails and your, I hope, and then I got to get it to an editor, but I mean, it's solid. I know what I want to tell in it. Yeah.
I did have one time. I talked a little bit about when you went away for your trip to Santa Barbara. There was that moment I was just reading it to Lisa about when Bill talked about your daughter and how it happens often in families when kids are young, how much the husbands and the dads are doing what they're doing, and it's crazy, and they don't really know their kids. And I never thought it was selfish of you to go on that trip, but I really realized during that trip how important it was, not just for you, but for your family as a whole.
Oh, yeah.
Because I felt like that trip was really his reconnection to seeing another side, and it was never going to happen as long as you were living in that house with everybody. Your kids needed it as much as he needed it. And I just was really moved and thankful that you guys had that.
You have so nailed the biggest part of this. And that chapter called Provider was called that because when Bill took care of those kids and became a different kind of provider, it's one thing to be rich, a rich guy who's made his money, and he can buy a brand new tire for his wife, take her out for a movie, buy a house, all these things. But when he had no money and he couldn't afford a movie night or a new tire when he needed one, he had to become a different kind of provider. And that 11 days, when I came home, I was like, oh my God, my 11 days is enough. But I remember calling Bayard and going, holy shit, you're not going to believe what happened to Bill in the 11 days. And he's like, what? And I'm like, he's like a different provider. He can't provide the cash and, all that, but he's like present. He understands the children. He's fallen deeply, madly. He already loved them, obviously. But when you spend that kind of time in a hard time like that, all kinds of things were exposed. They had a whole different thing when I came home. It was bizarre. And I'll tell you, his job.
Are you singing or playing guitar?
I am.
Are you good?
I am, yeah. Yeah, and my Aunt Judy lives here in the winter, and she is my muse for music, and so she has been coming over every night, and we sing and play, and yeah. I would never do anything professional because I'm below average still, but I do
I'm
love
letting you say something right now.
What'd she say?
Little Tracy Chapman, please.
I should get my guitar and play a song. Oh, God. Too funny.
So at the end of the book, you talk about that you're writing another book.
Yes.
Have you finished, or you're in process? The one that's about your son?
I'm so in process. And are y'all familiar with it? Did you read the prologue? So he had a cocaine addiction. Okay. So here's what's funny. A few weeks ago, it was right after New Year's, I got inspired. The house was empty in Dallas, and I pulled out my laptop, this one, and I wrote the first chapter. Not chapter 1, I wrote the most brutal chapter. I picked the worst one ever and ran with it. And within hours, it was done. And Marcus came home from work. He was the first one, and we were alone. And I said, he goes, "What are you working on? You look weird." You know, because I always have a weird, intense look. I go, "I think I just wrote the first chapter." And he goes, "Oh, God." And I go, "Are you still ready? Because now you're seeing your dad with the reviews and responses. It's intense. Are you ready?" And he goes, "I don't know, read it to me." So he was sitting at the kitchen sink watching me. And he said, "What's the chapter title?" I said, 13th and Cherry. And he's like, "Oh, God." Because that is basically kind of a crack house he was living in. And I went ballistic. It was the one time where he texted me like at probably 4:30 in the morning. And all he said was, "USA, Husa, that secret language of ours." And I was like, it's 4:30 a.m. It's a school night. He's high. He's worried and he's not good. I could tell by the low caps, and he had them all spread out. And I was like, dang it. So I got my courage up and I went over to the house. And it was a bad scene. And I wrote that chapter. And so I read it out loud to him. And he just stood there for a while. And I think he wanted to cry, but he didn't. And I was thinking, okay, I won't publish this. I mean, it's no big deal. I will write it for the family, just kind of like I did 11 Days. It'll just be for us. And he, excuse my French, he said, "That's so fucking good." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "That's so good. I love it." And I said, "Okay, so you're on board." And he goes, "Yes, absolutely, I'm on board." And then he left, and he went to work the next day. And he works in a hospital in the operating rooms. He wouldn't have a problem with it, but it's not,
On his list.
Yeah, not on his list. Okay, so the psychic from Santa Barbara that I originally talked to that got me the house sitting deal, this is weird. She was living there, right? I met her physically, and only for a short period of time, because she was packing her boxes and her cats, and she was moving to north of San Francisco. And she left. And I never talked to her again. I just didn't feel like I needed to. And I'm finishing the book, and I literally get a blanket email from her to all her clients from wherever. And she says, "Good news. So happy to say I'm moving back to Santa Barbara. It's been 11 years. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know it's been 11 years because I just wrote the book and it's been 11 years since 11." So I just picked up the phone and called her, and I said, I changed her name in the book, but I said, "Do you remember me?" She goes, "Of course I do." And I said, "So I wrote a book on the 11 days when I was there." She goes, "You did not." And I said, "I did." And I go, "Can you get a hold of the owners of the house?" And the Elton John, "Don't let the sun come down on me." And he's the one who put the paw on my shoulder. And I was like, dang. I mean, they're little healers. As you know, when you have an animal, they can do this for you. But the crushing thing was the end, which is, when I came home from that 11 days, I did announce to Bill within hours. I'm like, "Look, stupidest financial decision to do on food stamps, but I think we need a dog." And he's an animal lover. So he was like, newspaper was out in 15 minutes. He was like, let's go to the south side of Tucson. I think there's some rescues we can pick up. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And that's our sweet Adobe. And I wrote about her in the acknowledgments, and it broke our heart that her last chapter was literally when I was doing my last chapter of editing in Dallas. And I thought, when I called the home care vet to come to the house, she was from Chicago, which is where I was born and raised. I was like, oh, I got a homegirl with me, thank God. And Marcus told her the story. You know, this 11 Days book, my mom just wrote this, it's in her computer, Adobe's last chapter. And so she sat with us for like 2 hours and just cried off and on with us. She totally got it, you know, and she was like, I am so honored to be here. This is so special. And Bill wasn't there, he was on FaceTime, but it was so cool. But I'm in the house where this was her house. And so now every time I come in this house, the door, I think she's here, you know. And I hate being here for that, but she sat under my table the whole time I wrote. There's a doggy. I hear a dog. But anyway, yeah.
Well, we love you.
Oh, thank you.
And, this is so special to have you here talking to us, Judy. It's just very excited. Everyone's going to go online and put a something on Amazon for you, and we're cheering you on, and we just know it's going to go somewhere big. And I want one of those bracelets that says "Begin with N." Yeah, let us know when we can order those.
I see on your website the T-shirts.
I know. Right now, I just wanted to put a splash page because I feel like I cannot handle the T-shirt and jewelry business yet. So I'm thinking like a couple months, I'm going to... And then somehow, if you subscribe to that website and put your email in there, you'll be notified when it's live and all the products are there. But I have some really cool things. And I had to bring back the Begin With N shirt. I had to. There's a V-neck, a deep V, and a crew neck, and it's super cute and comfortable. Thank you so much. This is so fun for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Judy, let's say one more thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, this journey and this book was a lot for you, and you've already seen it in people that you talk to. But every person that is impacted by this, the gift that you gave to yourself is definitely being plentiful out there, without a doubt. Thank you for doing that very, very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I thought we were going to get through this without tears.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Looking forward to your next book.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, more stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, see you, Judy.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.